Kath T. I've watched all the Q&A videos, and I don't remember seeing you ever talk about mind-crushing boredom as a factor in Scientology and cults in general. As I've learned about cults from you and John Cedars and others, I've learned that boredom seems to be a tactic rather than an aberration. I first got interested in cults on the 30th anniversary of the massacre at Jonestown in Guyana. I found Jim Jones' sermons on the internet, expecting them to be captivating and enticing. In fact, they were incoherent and mind-crushingly dull. That was actually what began to intrigue me most and set me on the path of investigating more. I'd be interested in how bored you were in Scientology and what you think about boredom as a feature of Scientology and other cults. Thank you for your great work. Hey, thanks, Kath. Interesting question. And here's what comes to mind for me is when you talk about boredom, I think monotonous, repetitious nonsense being spewed by these guys in a kind of hypnotic pattern of speaking. A beat to their language. If you watch a guy named Stefan Molyneux on YouTube, you see the same kind of pattern to the way that he talks. There's a beat to it. It's monotonous, it's repetitious, and it's trance-inducing. And that is the tool that I believe that you are referring to there when you're talking about this mind-crushing boredom. You look at it as a non-follower or a non-believer from the outside, and you have a more objective perspective, and you look at what they're saying, and you go, my God, this is the most repetitious, boring nonsense I've ever seen. But the followers, I don't know if they showed any audience reaction shots during the Guyana thing. I've not watched Jim Jones speak for any length of time. I've seen short clips of him speaking. But the sermonizing, right? And in Scientology, this is analogous to L. Ron Hubbard's lectures, where he just drones on and on and on about stuff. And, Hubbard has an idea for a lecture, and the point could be made in a couple sentences. But he drags it out for like an hour and a half, telling all these tall tales and stories and telling stupid jokes and relating different anecdotes and stuff like that, and finally getting around and circling around to his point. And it was, even as a Scientologist, I noticed that sometimes, and it was a little bit like, my God, right? Could we just get to the point here? But in Scientology, of course, you're not allowed to play the tapes or the lectures at 1.5 speed or 2, double speed to kind of get through it and get to the point, right? You got to listen to him in his natural tone of voice. And that's because it's trance-inducing, and that is a tool of destructive cult leaders, is definitely, because you can get somebody into a very suggestible state of mind by putting them into a trance-like state. It is very, very easy to do, far too easy, in fact. And it's not just cult leaders that have noted this. This is a sales tactic, too. Even Les Dane, the guy who wrote a book called Big League Sales Techniques, talked about this when he said that you could talk to an audience of people and you're kind of droning on, and then you insert little funny or kind of gross statements into the middle of what you're saying. And because you're sitting there and have been for quite a while nodding and talking in this sort of trance-inducing way, the audience will be sitting there nodding and going along, and you could say things like, and everybody's an idiot here, right? Oh, yeah. And you just kind of fit that in, and everybody just kind of goes along, and nobody's really even totally hearing exactly what you're saying anymore, especially around 3 or 4 o'clock when people are most tired, most hungry, most out of it, in the afternoon, if you're doing like a day-long seminar or something. So anyway, there's all kinds of little nuances and tricks to this, but I think that's what you're actually talking about when you're referring to the boredom there. And I think you're having a correct response. I mean, I'm not saying your response is wrong or anything. As an objective person looking from the outside in, you look at it and go, ugh. But the people inside are looking at it going, oh, it's so amazing. Oh, he's such a great speaker. I love every word he says, even though they're really not even processing what the guy's saying a whole lot anymore. It's a little weird. Anyway, and again, there's a lot more nuance to it. There's a lot more going on, but that's my answer to your question. So thank you very much for asking, Kath.